as you mentioned, I'm from the Multisensory Experience Lab in Copenhagen at Aalborg Universitet, and I'm doing my PhD where I investigate how we can use virtual reality technologies to train children on autism spectrum disorder in everyday and social living skills. I'm gonna get back to that, but virtual reality is the new thing now. I mean, everyone is talking about it and it's all over the place, and it's the new it's the next smartphone, it's the next web pages, right? And everybody says it's a new thing, but where do we have it from? You guys, now you use the Westworld, so I'm gonna use a movie reference as well. How many of you have watched Ready Player One?
Not yet.
I quit. I stopped here. Alright, well, this movie where the year is 2045, and due to some natural disasters and so forth, there is nothing to do in the real world. Global warming has destroyed everything. There's not many jobs left in the real world. But then some guys created a Facebook version that is called the Oasis, and everything is in virtual reality. So every day people simply wake up, eat breakfast, and then they log into VR, and then they go to school there. They do their jobs in VR. Everything is going on in VR, and then they log out, eat some more, do some exercise, and then go back to work or socialize or stuff like that. And for those of you who have seen this movie, there are all these awesome technologies where you can actually, the first thing is having the goggles on and you can see stuff based on your head there or movements, but you can also feel stuff, you can touch stuff, you can feel the surfaces of stuff in the virtual environment. If there's a chair in VR, you could touch it in this movie, and you can feel the surface of the wood. And if you got hit by somebody, you can actually feel it. If somebody touches you, you can feel her touch on your body and so forth. And the crazy thing is, some of this technology, there are actually people today working on some of the stuff that's been shown in this movie. So, I mean, on the contrary to the Westworld, where you say it's not going to happen, this is going to happen to some extent. So go and watch it. It's an awesome movie. But it's not a new thing. Virtual reality has existed. I mean, the first head-mounted display was already developed back in 1968 by this dude called Ivan Sutherland. He's a computer scientist from the States, and he created the first head-mounted display that could show computer-generated images on the HMD based on the guy's rotation of the head. And this thing was so big, so large, that it needs to be attached to the ceiling of the building with a huge metal thingy. And he needs to carry it around with his hands in order not to get hurt. And it was so expensive. And all it did was to show some wireframes, but the computer generated this wireframe of the geometric figures. And I mean, technically this is augmented reality, where you augment the real environment with some virtual input. But again, the first VR goggles is actually very, very old. I could go even further back with some even worse, I mean, the more expensive technologies, but this is how I'm mainly known as the first one. Then in the 80s, NASA started looking at VR goggles. They used it to train their astronauts to how to fix stuff in space, how to behave in space and stuff like that. And so this was NASA technology, expensive as hell, and not very available for normal people like you and I. And they call it the virtual environment display system. But then it wasn't available to us, nerds at Nerdnite, until a company called Virtuality Group started creating these arcade machines where you could play games, play VR games at arcade halls. Back in the early 90s already. There were these awesome games where you put it at this mind-blowing resolution of 276 to 372. Watch and shoot them up, play space racer games and so forth. It was great. Problem was, you had to pay $10 to play like for a couple of minutes until you died, unless you were very good at it. $10 is a lot of money even today. I mean, I'm not taking inflation into account. But because the machine was so expensive to build, to today's money, one of these arcade machines would cost $108,000 to build. And then, lots of companies in the 90s also tried to create some home-based VR equipments for us, so that people could use to play games and experience virtual reality in their home in the 90s. This is a Nintendo Virtual Boy. They created it totally collapsed. I mean, they sold around 700,000 of it, but it didn't work out. People hated it, people got sick, people got motion sickness, and it looked terrible once you got your head in there. Sega also tried to develop it. They just got into a prototype, and before releasing they said, no guys, you're not gonna do this. This is terrible. This is a terrible product. Let's just back off. Even though they did lots of promotion and stuff like that, at some point they say, this is no go. And then there are products, those products that you had to plug to your computer, such as the VFX1 in the 90s. It worked, but it was very expensive. I got a cough, sorry. It was very expensive, but it worked nevertheless. But it was uncomfortable and you got sick as well. And then, you know, VR hype died in the middle of 19. Some people actually blame it on Nintendo that released this crap. But it died, nothing happened until like around 2009, where we have this guy, Eric, sitting right there, wearing one of the first VR goggles we bought for the Multisensory Experience Lab. In around 2009, this was crazy. We bought it for around 200,000 kronas, and it had this awesome resolution of 1218 times 1024. Whoa! And it had a 60-degree diagonal field of view, and the problem was, it was heavy, very heavy. It needed two huge cables coming out, one DV cable for each eye. And yeah, it wasn't very comfortable, and it had very narrow field of view. But it worked, and we used it a lot. Eric used it a lot during his PhD. And this is 200,000 kronas, right? In 2012, Oculus Rift released their prototype of a virtual reality head-mounted display. So not even that long after that, this thing only cost around 6,000–7,000 kronas when it came out. And then in 2006, HTC Vive came out. Crazy price jump. Everything went down, the technology became cheaper, more slow, you know, the microprocessors are getting faster and faster and cheaper to produce, and we can really see a perfect example of that in virtual reality. And then the PlayStation VR came out, and check out the resolution here. So I mean, the frame rate of the 19 images per second to each eye was absolutely amazing, and these are still the state of the art today. I brought the newest consumer version of this with me today, where I'm going to do some live demonstrations. But that stuff happened, and now everyone can have access to very, very high quality virtual reality equipment. And the computers you need to run this stuff are not even that expensive. I mean, I got it with help from Jonas, a computer at home for only 6,000–7,000 kronas that can run, this is doing it, but that can run virtual reality without any problem, like high-end virtual reality. And then, I mean, I mentioned, what is it called, Ready Player One. As you can see here, I'm wearing something called a Tesla suit that I tried out in the conference last week. Yes. And you have to wear this suit on your skin. And when I was experiencing virtual reality environments, if I went into a room on fire, I could feel the heat on my body. If I went into a cold room, I could feel coldness on my body. If somebody punched me in the belly, it actually hurt. And at some point I got electrified. And I got so badly electrified, my hands started shaking. I mean, you could really feel everything, and also at the same time tracked my motions with my body. So we are getting there. We are getting to Ready Player One already now. And these guys, I experienced them at the conference in Germany last month, I think it was, called Go Touch VR. And they have created these devices you put on your fingers, where you can actually feel the surfaces of objects in virtual reality. It's crazy. You can grab something, and you can try to, you know, hit it and feel the surface of it and the shapes of its surface and so forth. And there are more and more research being conducted in this area, and it's going very, very fast. So immersive virtual reality environments. And what are we in the Multisensory Experience Lab, or my own research I'm just to use it for, is how can we use it to train people, and how can we use it to conduct therapy? Holy shit, I'm not pressing any buttons. Oh well. What we can do with VR is to create these immersive, interactive environments where patients with different like mental disorders or some different conditions can train a variety of skills in virtual reality on their own level. So they can practice stuff that can help them. Hopefully we can create virtual environments where they can train stuff and transform that training to the real world and use it in the real world. In the beginning, what it was used for at the most was for people with anxiety disorders. Anxiety disorders, as all you know, is something that we are afraid of some certain situations, like social anxieties, people that are afraid to give speeches. I mean, I'm afraid of spiders. Some people we all might have our anxieties, but VR was huge for anxiety disorders already in 1994. And I have some references to some papers and some book chapters you can check out later. But what we do with anxiety disorders before VR was something called exposure therapy. So what we do is we have the guy who is got anxiety disorder, and we expose him to what he's afraid of, right? Gradually. And by this gradual exposure to whatever it is he's afraid of, we hope for him to get rid of his anxiety and be able to cope with the situations that he was afraid of before, right? And so we can do that in VR. Virtual reality enables us to create these guys and put them in the room, and then you have to defend yourself against them by running, by running around in VR and try to defend yourself. Or if it's like social speech, there are VR applications where you can practice social speech. Acrophobia was some of the first area that people conduct research on. Is fear of heights. These screenshots are from commercial products, but lots of studies, also in our lab, we do studies on fear of height, where they put a wooden plate in the lab, and then they put a cat with sensor on it on the end of the wooden plate. So you had to, you took the goggles on, and then boom, you are on the 67th floor-ish in an American building, and then you have to go and save the cat. People with anxiety or disorder, they are like, holy shit. They are, because you can feel the wood underneath your foot, and everywhere you look, it was very, very far down, and you were afraid to die. But then they went there, and then they grabbed the cat, and there were sensors on the cat, so once they grabbed the cat, they could see the cat in VR as well as in the real world. Then they went back. There are some studies indicating that it actually worked. Already in 94, North, wife and husband, they conducted a study on people afraid of taking elevators with glass walls, you know, where you can see outside. And they put like, I don't remember the exact numbers, especially because of these guys. But they put lots of people through exposure therapy in VR, in elevators. And then after 9 months, they did like some post-evaluation of them to see if they could actually still could they use the elevator now after being exposed to VR exposure therapy. And 90% of them get rid of their acrophobia. We can use it for agoraphobia, which is afraid of places where you cannot get out, you cannot see the exit. And that's actually a huge anxiety disorder for lots of people. You can create VR experiments where you gradually are exposed to areas where you can't get out from. And therapies can turn up the volume of how many people are there, how many exit doors are there, and so forth, and gradually expose you to these environments that you're afraid of. Or airplanes, for example. Arachnophobia, which is the spider thingy. We can place one spider in front of you to begin with if you're afraid of spiders. And then we can, once you're comfortable with that, we can gradually increase the number of spiders. And increase, and increase. And we can even use augmented reality, where you use stuff like HoloLens. God damn it. I'm gonna use my own. You can use HoloLens. HoloLens is augmented reality goggle. I'm not gonna talk about it much, but you can take it on, and I can see all you guys while I have that on. And then we can place virtual elements on this table. And all of a sudden we can place spiders on the table, and it can track my hand, so spiders are going to crawl up on my hand. Even though they are not there, I can see them on my hand. That's some of the most effective therapies for that. And then fear of driving, we have in our lab, something Razvan also worked on at some point, I think. Anastasia. But yeah, we can work with people who are afraid of driving. I'm playing a racing game, but we also have a Copenhagen, a version of Copenhagen where you can drive like much more slowly around in Copenhagen. You know,
don't drink and drive.
Don't drink and present. And you can gradually be exposed to driving around in Copenhagen in a slow car, and hopefully you get used to it so you can transform that the training to the real world. Something else that VR has been used for is for people with substance use disorders. Like, you know, alcohol, cocaine, or whatever. And something that works for people with substance use disorders, of course, pharmacological solutions like drugs. I mean, you take some pills and you don't want to drink anymore. But a form of therapy also works for these people. That's called Q exposure therapy. And Q exposure therapy discusss that if somebody who has some alcohol problem, usually while he's been exposed to some visual cues, that it will trigger his need for the alcohol. If he sees a bar, he wants to drink, right? So whenever, I mean, I'm in a bar, I want to drink. Whenever I see a football table, I want to drink. Whenever I see football, I want to drink. When I see burger, I want to drink. When I see the sun shining, I want to drink a beer. When I see your face, I want to drink beer. And then in VR, and what they do is they expose you to what triggers this need to drinking without the actual alcohol being there. And after being exposed to that for some time, you start getting this craving after being exposed to the visual elements in that area, if it makes sense, right? So, put me in a bar for a while, but don't give me alcohol. After some time, I will like, okay, usually I don't drink alcohol in bars anymore. Let me play football without drinking beer. At some point, I will get used to playing football without drinking. In VR, there are studies showing that people can be exposed to VR-based visual cues of the environments that usually trigger their association of the visual environment to their drinking problem, alcohol problem, weed problem, whatever. And then stroke patients have also been exposed to this VR rehabilitations. Stroke, as most of you know better than I do, blockage in the blood veins in the brain that stops the flow of the blood to certain parts of the brain cells, which kills those brain cells. Which results in you not being able to use, let's say, your left hand. I'm left-handed. That would be terrible. So it could be using your left hand, and it requires extensive amount of exercise for you to get rid of, to be able to use your thing again, your hand again. You can use VR to your hand. That's in your hand. You will be able to do. You can gamify the exercise element so that you are motivated to do the exercise required for you to actually get rid of, be able to use your hands again, for instance. And the best thing, usually you have to go to the therapist's office and you have to practice in these boring, repetitive exercises. But in VR, we can do it at home. The therapist can remotely observe you and give you feedback. You don't have to go there, and you can gamify it so it becomes actually fun. Also at the Multisensory Experience Lab, we had Jon here from the Multisensory Experience Lab. He did his PhD on motivating the elderly to exercise more using virtual reality. And this was an awesome project. And so you can use that as well. He created this virtual, he used these virtual environments where the elderly thought it was awesome. It's so beautiful around here. So they were motivated to bike around this VR environment and try to check it out, and they exercise actually compared to be trying to exercise with therapists. And now I want to use this chance to pose a score for our new PhD fellow, Emil over there, who just got his PhD accepted to work exactly on this topic. Skål, Emil. Thank you. Congratulations. But enough about Emil, let's talk about me. Autism spectrum disorder. That's my PhD about. How can we use VR to support individuals on autism spectrum disorder? Autism spectrum is the spectrum of neurodevelopmental disorders where individuals diagnosed with it have issues, communication skills issues. They are not able to understand your facial expressions. They are not able to have eye contact with you. They feel uncomfortable in social situations, and they don't get the rules of life basically. So it results in the everyday living skills such as cleaning themselves and shopping on their own, using the public transportation, how to behave in traffic, for instance, or how to behave on a playground. And this, they are a victim of bullying a lot, and they drop out of the school and they don't get jobs and they are dependent on their parents and so forth. So, as you can see, there are research showing that in the States, an individual on autism spectrum disorder, an average cost to society $3.2 million. And that's in loss of productivity of himself and his parents, as well as the social adult care costs and social services that he needs upon adulthood to take care of himself. Furthermore, approximately 1 in 100 individuals are diagnosed with autism today. So if you were 100 people here today, I wish we were, one of us would be autistic. I think we have a couple over there in my lab, but yeah. The tradition. Oh, come on. Traditional intervention. This is really extremely challenging now. Traditional interventions to train people on autism spectrum disorder to be able to take care of themselves and be good at social skills and so forth. One of them is video modeling, where you show them a video of the right behavior, and they hope they learn from that video and they be able to perform the same task in the real world. And it actually works. It's an evidence-based method. It works. When they see something visual, they're actually interested in it compared to if it was a teacher, because they don't feel comfortable around teachers. They are human beings and they don't understand them. Videos they understand. But there are also methods with human beings. Like social stories, where you look at like a comic, strip about certain social scenarios, and then the teacher and our therapist will discuss with you how to behave within the frames of this comic. It could be about sharing, for instance. I will get back to that. And then there is cognitive behavior therapy, where therapists or psychologists will discuss your thoughts, your feelings, and what behaviors it will make you want to do. And then the psychologists have some homeworks and some methods for you to get rid of those disruptive behaviors. And they give you homework and they help you train it out. You can do some of this stuff in VR. I mean, video modeling is very visual-based, VR is very visual-based, and also very interactive. Social stories have to be visual-based, with drawings and comics. VR is even more visual-based, and even it's interactive. We can place you in there, and we can also place a therapist in there. And so is cognitive behavioral therapy. So, one of our first studies that I did with Emil there, where we tried to train children to shop on their own. We talked to some of the teachers, we found out they have huge problems with shopping on their own. So we created a virtual version of the supermarket. We actually created a food text that was very close to those kids. Here are some screenshots, I'm going to show it to you later. Emil did lots of work there. He went out to the supermarket, because usually from normal products, he just took pictures of them, brought them home, used the textures, and placed them on the 3D models, and then boom, they had the product in VR. But what about the cans and so forth? They're round shaped, you cannot just take a picture. So he brought them home, put them in a bucket of water, wait for the label to disattach, he dried them. Once they were dried, he took a picture, and then he put it on a can in VR, in Maya. And then he put it in Unity, the game engine we use to develop VR in Maya. And then, in order to create common stimuli, we didn't want to give them two VR controllers. What do you have in your hand when you're in a supermarket? A shopping basket. So they should also have a shopping basket in their hand. You just use a sensor to track the shopping basket in VR, and you could see it actually. So now I'm going to do a real live demonstration of that, and it's going to go wrong. So bear with me. Okay, I see you guys later. So now I'm in Vertex, right? Can you see everything on the screen? Maybe I can just make it... So as you can see here, I'm in supermarket in Vertex. I have my shopping basket here and I have my shopping list here. So we use this to train children with autism to navigate around the supermarket and try to finish this shopping list. So I could just grab this thing and say, oh, this is not what I needed. Organic, I don't do organic. So, but what do I have? Yeah. So, you know, I could just walk around the whole supermarket. We have, as I told you, Emil scanned all the products, mini milk and so forth. But what we need is like a packaged network. And one of the biggest problems children with autism have is generalization. I'm talking to the supermarket. But it's generalization. So when they get a shopping list where it says Pakke Knækbrød, they look at the knækbrøds, they see, oh, okay, down here we have the sport knækbrød, up here we have some other knækbrød, and they panic. Which one should I pick? That's what the teachers told me. So we use this to help them, like, fuck it, man, you can take whatever knækbrød you want. It's still cool. It still says it's cool, don't worry about it. You can, if your shopping list says butter, you shouldn't be afraid of which butter do you pick. You just go out and pick the butter, right? So this is like the supermarket, and where did I put that?
It's good.
So, and if you want to read more about this, we published a paper last year when Emil and I went to France to present it at the ISMAR conference. This was one of our studies. And then another study we conducted at the lab was a VR environment for the children to practice social skills, sharing skills. They have issues with something called theory of mind. they do not understand that you have other thoughts or expectations or needs than I do. They don't understand. They cannot read your facial expressions and understand that while you are drinking your beer and I want your beer, I can just go ahead and take your beer because I want your beer. I don't care about what you feel because I don't understand what you feel. And that's the same with toys in the classroom. There are so many conflicts. According to the teacher we talked to, he said people just go and grab each other's toys and so forth. And they use social stories such as this. They say, sometimes I want to play with toys or games my friends are playing with. And blah, blah, blah. You know, they use this to try to practice with them about how it is to share the toys. You're not just supposed to go ahead and take their toys. So we set it out and they developed a virtual version of the real classroom. We tried to make it similar, but more charming and cartoonish. And we developed a number of scenarios for this. So that a number of social scenarios they could practice. So can I get a nice assistant up here? Anyone?
I like to volunteer.
If you can button up your shirt. Alright, so I'm gonna illustrate that thingy. I'm gonna turn up the volume here. Maybe it's too high, we're gonna find out.
I used to have.
I'm too high, we're gonna find out. Okay. I'm going in.
Yes.
So would you please press, once it starts, press 1.
Now?
Yes. And it might go wrong. And then I'm the kid. And he's my teacher. Emil is my therapist now, okay? And I know the kid looks at this guy and he's like bitching about the game a lot. And he's saying, it means shitty game, I can't figure it out. And then the teacher waits or try to make the child go and take the toy from him. So then I will go, and this is going wrong maybe, there's a table in front of me. And then I can... See? And then press P, Emil, on the keyboard. And then the teacher can pause the experiment. I just closed his computer and he got sad. And now the teacher can pause it, and then we had a microphone for the teacher where he would talk to me, the child, about what I just did. And he could tell me, this is not cool, dude. Don't do that. You don't just go ahead and close somebody else's computer while they are playing. Then press 2, Emil, please. Ooh, now I get to play if I can go close enough. Okay, this is outside of my VR range, I can see that.
No, I was plugging the sensor.
Okay, the game is see, now it was wrong. It's a game where I have to press the right color. It says, I did it right. Ooh, I did it right again. And once the teacher, Emil, feels I'm very engaged in the game, very immersed in the game, he can press the L button. Press the L button.
Are you immersed?
I'm immersed. What? He just closed my computer. How rude. And then Emil can press P. Press P. And discuss with me what he just did and how it made me feel. It made me feel better. Somebody else just closed my computer.
How are you feeling right now?
I feel like crap. So now press the 3 button. Thanks. Now Emil will tell me, Ali, you autistic child, try to go ahead and ask him politely if you're allowed to borrow his toy. Okay, Emil, I will do that. Can I borrow your toy? Emil, press N. He just said, no, not now. But then you were gonna talk to me about, okay, you can wait a little bit and then go back again and say, please, can I borrow your toy? Please, can I borrow your computer? Please press J. Woohoo! And then I can start playing. And then Emil, the teacher, can pause the experiment and discuss with me what just happened socially. You have to ask for permission. And if they say no, you have to wait, and so forth. Thank you, Emil. Yes, so we are done soon, don't worry. And we published this at a VR conference last month, 2 months ago, and you can read more about them. And their own, even Vive headsets that are more expensive than what I brought with me today. And they are getting cheaper and cheaper, so I hope that we can stay with the high-end VR stuff, because I love the fact that designing environments where you can go around and grab stuff. It's much better, and you can train, and you can make mistakes, and you can learn from your mistakes.
Yes. So I'm curious about this anxiety thing, because so my question, I guess, is do you have equal success rates for different anxieties? Because there are different kinds, right? Because like some of them, in some sense, are irrational, while others, like if, for instance, you showed the experiment with the fear of heights in the cat, intuitively I would think that the brain would be able to differ between being in true danger and the simulation of a dangerous situation.
So, I mean, how exposure therapy usually works is like a pyramid. Exposure therapy only works if you actually trigger, you make them afraid. You need to create environments that they are actually afraid of. You have to bring them up here. And then after some time, after they are in there, nothing happens. And then the fear goes down. So if you create VR environments that doesn't bring them up there, it's not going to work. They're not going to get rid of their anxiety. You need to create scary stuff. You need to make it as scary as possible. I'm working with a psychologist therapist guy who got some a clinic called Cool Kids. He's working with children with anxiety disorder. And he just ordered a VR environment with dogs in it. Because he has lots of children who are afraid of dogs or kids. They cannot, if they see a dog on the street, they start screaming and running away. So he ordered a movie, a 360 movie with dogs in it. And then he told me, and he used it on some of his clients, and he told me the kids were like, it's like watching a movie. I'm not really afraid. And it didn't work. So you really need to scare them. The fear of height, you need to be scary. And if some of you are interested, we have a fear of height application. I'm not going to demo it, but you can try it out if you want. Developed by Multisensory Experience Lab. So there are more demos. If you are interested, come over to me. Once I have smoked, maybe. Any more questions?
Do we have any more?
Can I ask something about from? Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you.